Joining me now, Steve Krakauer, editor and host of the Fourth Watch Substack and podcast. He's also a NewsNation contributor. Thanks very much for coming on the show, Steve. Appreciate it. All right, so what do you make of what MSNBC is doing and not doing right now?
Yeah, wow, you went deep into the archives there. That was fantastic and very thorough. I think you've laid it out perfectly. This is a problem of MSNBC's own making here. For a very long time now, as you know very well, they have decided to put essentially pundits, people that have strong opinions, in anchor chairs. That is essentially the business model, and in a lot of instances that works out well. Rachel Maddow, you go down the list. But then you get instances like this. And I think what's really important here is that we are seeing poll after poll, CNN, the Washington Post. It's not just the right or the center. The left, too, has support for Israel in America after what happened, the terrorist atrocity that happened in Israel. And they have these people in positions who have a long history on the air, on MSNBC, of saying things that are at the absolute most pro-Palestinian. And at worst, you could say kind of delve into maybe anti-Semitic or at least anti-Israel. So I think that they have put themselves in this position, and now they are in this very, very difficult position, as you lay out, because they cannot admit that they cannot have these people in the anchor chair. They have to just kind of dance around it and essentially put these people in pundit roles during this very serious breaking news event that they are forced to cover.
But I've got to believe that we're going to find out, right? I mean, at some point, one of them is going to leave MSNBC, right? And they're going to pronounce, one of the reasons I'm leaving MSNBC is because you remember during the conflict, I wasn't allowed to say anything, but they totally How is there any way to interpret this other than they've sidelined these guys?
Oh, absolutely. I think, and I would highlight, as you did, Mehdi Hasan, number one, Ayman Mohyeldin, maybe number two, because Mehdi has been at the forefront. He's probably one of the most prominent MSNBC hosts when it comes to their activism on Twitter, let's just say, even more so than what they're doing on the air. He's very outspoken. And I would imagine, if this persists, if there's this internal wrangling that's going on right now, it's starting to spill out in what we're seeing in places like Semaphore and others, it's going to get ugly very fast if he's not allowed to be back in that anchor chair, because this conflict is not going away. And MSNBC has to make a decision. Do they allow their hosts to continue to say the positions that they've said for a very long period of time, as you've laid out, on the air and off? Or do they believe that, nope, now is the time that we actually have to have some journalism on our air and not pundits in positions of that we kind of give themselves in these host type positions?
Speaking of journalism, you write in your newsletter today that you believe that some reporters are applying a different standard with regard to the credibility of reports coming out of Israel.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that for a very long period of time during the Trump era, we saw a real dearth of skepticism, of curiosity when it comes to reports. You say, we need two sources to get on the air, maybe just one. Oh, the New York Times has a source, so, the Washington Post is going to run with their source. That is very curiously not happening in some instances here. We see this in really trying to be very skeptical about the exact specifics of what sort of atrocities happen to babies in kibbutzes, or there's one eyewitness that says that people were raped in Israel, but we need a second source to confirm. I mean, it is outrageous, and really what it stems from is a total skepticism of Israel. That is really what it's at the core there, that we see reporters from the LA Times, from the Washington Post, on Twitter, but also in the paper, pour a ridiculous amount of skepticism, when in reality, what they really should be doing is focusing on the actual story here, which is the terror activity that happened and the atrocities that's continuing to happen as Hamas has these hostages, still hundreds that are in Gaza right now.
Steve Krakauer, welcome to NewsNation. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
Dan, good to talk to you. Thanks.
Coming up. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.